Too Close to Call is a sports talk radio show brought to you by Kevin Mihalik, featuring commentary on the week's biggest sports news and events and engaging behind-the-scenes player interviews. While specializing in Philadelphia sports, Too Close to Call will also discuss issues and events happening on a national scale. Too Close to Call airs Tuesday from 1 to 2 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m.
I gotta send my love down to Baton Rouge. Hurry up, won't you put her on the line? I gotta talk to the girl just one more time. Calling Baton Rouge.
Aloha and hello out there, everybody. What's going on? This is Kevin Mihalik, your host, as always, of Too Close to Call Sports here at Usala Media, Usala Radio. And we're calling Baton Rouge this Tuesday afternoon as the LSU Tigers won the national championship yesterday in the heck of a football game, a very entertaining game. But to set the scene for everybody out there, it was the game of the century. For in this corner, we had the reigning national champions, winners of 28 in a row, led by a beautiful quarterback, good-looking individual, flowing hair, gets all the girls in class, I'm sure, Trevor Lawrence. And in the other corner, we had the challenger, the LSU Tigers, led by Coach O, who you can't understand even if it's one heartbeat. You can't understand the guy, as well as Joe Burrow, the gentleman who went from a fifth-round potential NFL draft pick to the surefire number one overall draft pick in an improvement that hasn't been seen before. We were talking pregame with some of the draft scouts and things like that, and basically they said they've never seen it. A guy go from a fifth-round pick to first overall. It's never been done before. It was absolutely insane, and the game started out as such. That's a joke out there for everybody who watched it, because the first couple of possessions back and forth, each team went like 3 and out and punting the football. We thought we were going to get a 190 football game here, and here they come out stinking up the joint. But everybody was a little bit revved up early on, which you can imagine. You can understand the national championship going on. Huge crowd, national crowd, everybody and their moms at the game on the field, all the celebrities, all the ex-players, and both teams just, I'm sure, wanted to show out early on. But once they kind of caught their footing, really got into the flow of the game, Clemson actually threw the first punch, and it was a little bit of a surprise for those of you who didn't follow Clemson very closely this year. For myself, I knew Clemson had this in them, and if you listen to yesterday's Too Close to Call show, yesterday afternoon, I discussed how Clemson was not going to get out-talented in this football game. If you actually look at the recruiting classes, talent is one, or Clemson is 1, 2, or 3. LSU, they're no 20, 25. They're certainly 4, 5, or 6. But when it comes to the talent on the field, this is one of the few instances where LSU wasn't going to win on talent alone, and it came down to execution and coaching. And once again, the first punch was thrown by Clemson, and that was because they actually came out and established a 3-1-7 defensive formation. So for those of you out there going, hey, what the heck's that? It's typically a 3-4-4 or a 4-3-4. First segment, defensive linemen. Second segment, linebackers. Third one is secondary defensive backs. And that's where Clemson decided, because LSU loves to spread the field, go 5 wide, no running backs in the backfield, that they were only going to put 3 defensive linemen on the field, 1 linebacker, which more or less was a spy on Joe Burrow and had the running back, if that was ever the case. And then they went with 7 defensive backs. And early on, this was something LSU had not seen before, maybe once before in the Auburn game. I know there was some talk about that they had run it, but not specifically for 60 minutes. That's for sure here. And shout out to the DC Venables there at Clemson, one of the highest paid assistants in the country, one of the best assistant coaches in all of the country. So he's certainly known to put together a plan, and he did that for the first couple of series. Clemson goes up 17-7. They had the big play on the reverse by the wide receiver T. Higgins, who did his best beast mode impression, runs over a secondary defensive back at about the 5-yard line ends up getting into the end zone, and you're thinking to yourself, man, this is the first time this is the first time LSU has been losing in months and months. I don't know the last time they were even down 10 points. So 17-7, you're thinking, hey, are they going to fold? This is the first time they're facing adversity. We just saw this weekend with the Baltimore Ravens, who had coasted the entire year, got hit in the mouth, and really didn't know how to respond. But they gathered themselves at LSU. They made a few quick adjustments, specifically on offense. Like I said, down 17-7, trying to figure out the 3-1-7. They decided to go to more of the quick passing game, the quarterback draw game, just based on the numbers, because Clemson, they didn't want to bring guys down in the box just due to the big play ability for Louisiana State. So they spread everybody out. LSU did. They had one-on-one in the box, 5 against 4, and basically let Burrow run. He had a rushing touchdown. He had another big play with his legs late in the game to extend the drive, but LSU threw up 21 straight points before halftime. It really was, interesting to watch this second quarter. It was 7-7 after one, then Clemson had 10 in a row, and then LSU came back with 21 straight, and what looked to be the backbreaker, it ended up not being, as Clemson came out of halftime and answered the bell. But when LSU scored that touchdown to go up 28-17 as opposed to a field goal to make it 24-17 with, I think it was like 12 seconds or 8 seconds or something like that late in the second quarter, it felt like the air was almost sucked out of Clemson at that point, and this may be the end of them. But looking specifically at that second quarter, one of the statistics that was floating around social media that I thought was amazing was LSU had more yards in the second quarter alone against Clemson than 8 opponents had total when they played Clemson. So LSU had more yards in the second quarter than 8 of Clemson's opponents the entire game. And that just shows you the strength, explosiveness, and the talent on LSU's offense when it's being run almost to perfection, which is pretty much what Joe Burrow was able to put together last night. And like I said, we're going into halftime, which means we're going to get the Dr. Pepper throw the ball through the circle games that I can't stand. So here, a little bit of a rant here on those games. I understand, okay, 1v1, I'm cool with that. The amount of balls into the thing at halftime, I'm good with that. But back it up far enough where the people have to throw the gosh darn football, okay, with these chest passes that are going on in these competitions. I understand you're probably like, hey, listen, we can't have the old lady do it if she has to throw the football, or the old guy who's chest passing. But, okay, that's the point then. Then they can't do it, all right? Have their son do it for them, or their grandson. Allow a representative to be chosen if the person who randomly gets picked can't perform the act. But I can't stand that stuff. I'd change the channel every freaking time. I mean, are you kidding me? From here to Dylan in the last 5 yards, we're just chest passing. This isn't football. You might as well give them basketballs. What the hell's the difference here? So that's besides the point. But coming out of halftime, LSU got the football. They scored right before half. You're thinking, hey, if they punch it in here again, this baby's over. And that's where Clemson was able to make some adjustments defensively, able to get a stop. They get the ball back. They get a touchdown on the first drive. Best case scenario for the Tigers wearing orange. They get within 28-25. And you didn't know at that point, but those were the last points Clemson was going to get on the day. And just when that happened, I was like, okay, we're going to have a football game. I thought we may get a blowout, but not so fast. And then one of the big plays or the big calls that happened was the targeting call on Skalski, is I think how the hell you pronounce his name, the middle linebacker. And like I said, as a 3-1-7, the only linebacker who's on the field and kind of the heart and soul of that defense. He gets called for a targeting penalty, gets ejected from the game. One question I do have, and hopefully a listener out there can answer this, I wasn't able to look it up beforehand, but if you get ejected in the last game of that season in the second half, do you get suspended for the first game the next season for the first half? You know how it happens in season, a full game? Well, I don't know if it happens season to season. I would be surprised. I don't think it should. I mean, what the hell? The kid got thrown out of the national championship game. I think that's enough punishment in itself for a hit that wasn't nearly egregious as the one clown he put on Carson Wentz on Sunday. So, that's where I argue with the fact of the ejection purpose of the college football rule as opposed to just the flag, or maybe you make it a quarter, the rest of the quarter. I don't know, 2 drives, however you want to put it. But if a kid makes a hard hit on the first drive of the game, he has to sit out the rest of the game. I don't understand it. I don't think that having him sit out is deterring to the point where they're changing a style of play. I mean, case in point, as a Pitt fan, Paris Ford, a defensive back who's one of the best defensive backs they've had in a long time, he lays the lumber, man. He'll come in and hit you in the mouth. He was kicked out of 3 games this fall. So that tells you right there, hey, after the first time or after the second time, he's not changing the way he plays. He is who he is as a football player. He's going to keep hitting you in the mouth. And just because he's so damn fast and hits so hard, he keeps getting tossed. It's like, oh, well, is that the point of the rule, is to try to deter future infractions? Well, it's not working that way because people get banged all the time during the same year. So I just think it's a disservice to the kids, a disservice to the fans, and all of the above, especially because since that point on, we talked about it. I think Clemson, what the hell was the final? 50-25. They won by 17. No, 42-25. So they scored, 14 more points after he left in about a quarter and a half, and they missed a field goal on top of it. So they really had their way after he left. And, it really comes down to the battle between Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. And that was the conversation leading up to the game. Which one would you rather have? There were arguments to be made on both sides. Yes, Trevor Lawrence, he was the sophomore. He's the young kid. But he's 25-0 as a starter. The team had won 29 straight games, going 15-0 last year, 14-0 so far this year. And, he was a Heisman favorite, excellent the last 2 months, has all the skills, number 1 overall recruit. Certainly a case to be had that you would have rather had Lawrence going into this game. But just performance alone, I think I saw a statistic at the end of the night where he had 13 overthrows, 14 overthrows, meaning he missed his intended receiver too high for the opportunity, not the old Donovan McNabb spike into the ground, but overthrowing them. And that's just nerves. That's energy. That's adrenaline. That's what happens when you become a quarterback. You get a little too excited. You want to put a little bit more oomph on the ball and get it a little bit more, and you just tend to let go slightly earlier than you should, and the ball will sail on you. But on the flip side, Joe Burrow just continued to drop dimes. It was unbelievable watching him throw the deep ball. He throws an elite deep ball for the National Football League right now. Just the placement of those passes. He should have had an additional touchdown. The guy dropped in the end zone, if you remember, late in the football game. And just one-on-one as a defensive back, if you're not looking back at the ball, he's open. He's going to put it to where you're not going to be able to reach it. And you may have nice positioning, but if you don't know the ball's coming, it can just drop in, and you have nothing you can do there. And Burrow setting all of these records, 60 touchdowns in a year, most touchdowns in a title game, most touchdowns in a year, this, that, the third, yards, completions, all of the above is just fascinating to watch. Like I said, a 5th-round draft pick last year. He was okay, you know what I mean? And then, really the only variable is Joe Brady, a friend of mine and a friend of a friend. Joe, obviously, he's the talk of the town, the talk of the nation right now, really. We've discussed on some previous shows, the Panthers looking at him, the Eagles talking about him, and winning a national championship. And his right-hand man, DJ Mangus, who we've had on the podcast before for a good 45-minute interview. So if you guys want to hear some of that, he was a former offensive coordinator, and now he was an offensive analyst at LSU. So he also got a national championship ring last night. So 2 buddies of mine going to be carrying around some bling-bling moving forward. But truly a really impressive game, a game I wanted to watch. These were the 2 teams I wanted to see play just due to the talent on the field, and it was a case of nobody could stop LSU. Just nobody could get in the way of that machine. And the follow-up conversation to that I've heard some of on the talk radio out there today is LSU the best team ever in college football? And those words, quote-unquote, best team ever, are very, very subjective. I off the top of my head, I think about that Miami team in the early 2000s that had 5, 6, 7, 11 NFL guys on it. There's an Ohio State team in there, too, that are fantastic. Obviously, Alabama would have 2 or 3 that they would love to put in the conversation, and that's just in the last 20 years. I mean, you're going back 70s, Nebraska, USC, Texas, all of the above, and I think it's just it's a fun conversation to have with your friends at the bar, but there really is no right answer and no wrong answer. So there isn't like a finalization you can come to with that's the question. But the question I think that can be answered, and the answer should be yes, is did LSU just have the greatest season ever in college football? And the answer is yes. Just based on the statistics alone, offensively, the records they continued to set the last 3 weeks or 3 games, I guess not weeks, but SEC title game, national semifinal, national championship. It was 4 Georgia, 4 Oklahoma, 3 Clemson, and they whooped them by a total of like 150 to 90 or something like that. Won by like a total of 60 points in 3 games against top 5 teams. Obviously, the win over Alabama when they had Tua healthy. There's quite a few impressive wins in there. Florida, another one as well. Just fun to watch LSU this entire year. Just an excellent football team. And if you're a quarterback or a fan of quarterback play, you really need to watch Joe Burrow's film from this year and how on the same page the entire team was. I mean, the one touchdown he threw where he got smacked was a matter of fact of the tight end breaking off his route, reading the defense the same way Joe Burrow did, and it was a timing play, so when he turned around, the ball was already there, and if those two aren't 100% on the same page, that's not going to work, and that's not, going to be a touchdown for LSU. But shout out to the state of Louisiana, obviously with the New Orleans Saints and their hardships we discussed on yesterday's show in the last 4 to 5 years, crushing defeats in the playoffs anymore. I don't know if a state needed this any more than the state of Louisiana. But, 24 hours, not even later here, almost 12, 13 hours. I think we're going to take a live look down at City Hall down in Louisiana and Baton Rouge to see what's going on down there. Let's check that out here real quick. Woo, baby! Celebrating down in Baton Rouge. Going down the bayou. Ho, ho, ho. Hey, special bonus points out there to whoever comments what movie that audio's from there, baby. Fantastic audio. Shout out in the comments there. That's just... I love that audio, and that's all I could think of when I'm going, oh, man, these post-game parties have to be fantastic down at Baton Rouge. It's got to be crazy. I know they're getting a parade going on LSU's campus. I think they said Saturday. Obviously shut down class yesterday and today for all the excitement. But, one last shout-out, Joe Brady, LSU. Fantastic college football season wraps up once again. And, you know what? I hate these things. But I did one for you out there. I did a way too early kind of top 10 for the year 2020. College football, you read all these articles because everybody goes literally 30 seconds after the game's over. Oh, well, what are the rankings next year? Where are we going to be next year? Because I didn't win this year, so I'm on to next year. And this, that, and the third. But the way I did it is I put tiers of teams. Because after watching the playoffs, the SEC title game, it's clear as day that there are about 5, 6, maybe 7 programs that are just playing a different sport than the rest of college football. I mean, they talk about the playoff and everybody has a chance, this, that, and the third, but really when you break it down, there's 7 teams that have a chance every year. We've seen it. I mean, it's the same cast of characters. In the first tier, you obviously have Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, and Oklahoma. So those 6, I don't believe, can be argued whether they're the top tier with facilities, recruiting, all of the above. They're top 10 programs year in and year out. And the second tier that I put there is kind of the names that come and go a little bit, that you kind of hear about, you kind of don't. If they get good quarterback play, it could really make a run. You could add more names to this list. Like I said, I went to 10. I think I ended up putting 11 on here total. But those next 5 are the Oregons, Floridas, Auburns, Notre Dames. You could probably throw Penn State in there, Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, kind of those teams that have 2 losses every year, don't seem to get over the hump, really struggle. But, I mean, honestly, if you're picking anybody but Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, or Oklahoma to make the Final Four, that's just stupid. It's dumb. I get it. Listen, clickbait, it's awesome. Lee Corso said Utah at the beginning of the year, and they were 1 game away. So, kudos to him, right on it. I'm good with that. But like I said, those are your tier 2 type of teams. Throw Utah in there, where if they make a run or if they beat somebody, they could get in. But if not, they're not year in and year out perennial Final Four teams. But the one more bullet point I had here, I wanted to bring this up earlier, but if you didn't see the LSU hype video where The Rock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, does the audio over top of it, please Google it. Please check it out, because I think that came out after I talked to you guys at 4 o'clock when I was talking about, hey, maybe putting some money on Clemson, risk reward. Well, after that came out, it was hammer LSU by 100. I mean, when you got The Rock doing a badass hype video for you, hammer LSU in that game. So I hedged my bets last night. I saw that interview and I was like, oh crap, I got to put money on LSU. There's no shot they're losing this football game. They got their freaking Rock doing hype videos for them. So Coach O probably called her, hey, Dwayne, I need you to do a hype video. I need you to get the boys going here. We got Clemson coming up. It's just another football game, but we got the boys. We got to hit rock bottom, get to the top. And it was fantastic. So that wraps up college football talk here in the first segment. So for the next 5, 6, 7 minutes, whatever it may be here, real quickly, just want to touch on another national story that dropped yesterday, the day before, and the details continue to kind of emerge, and that is the Houston Astros cheating scandal. Bum, bum, bum. Everybody knows they've been accused stealing signs, but the problem is it's live time and it's using technology. I mean, everybody since baseball's been played has been on second base, and if you put one fastball down, hey, you're getting a fastball. Like that's happened since the creation of the game. The problem with this one is they had guys in the dugout watching the live television feed with no delay when there is supposed to be a delay for this precaution, and they're relaying that to the batter by banging trash cans, when off-speed pitches are coming, and pure silence when nothing's coming, and things along those lines. So after the most thorough, detailed investigation in the history of Major League Baseball, the commissioner has determined that he's taking action at the higher level of the institution, or whatever freaking word he used. Lack of organizational infrastructure or something. They use the term the NCAA loves to use when they fine athletic directors. But basically, if you read the 9-page memorandum, which I read most of it, and, I can't really read that much at once. It's just a thing mentally, who can read that much? 9 pages? Jeez, crazy. I mean, it took like 5 minutes. It was insane reading for 5 minutes. But basically it came out that said the GM, who was in charge of baseball operations. So the owner of the team allowed the GM to run his baseball side, said, hey, that's you. I'm not touching it. I'm going to worry about the Houston Astros Foundation, partnering with the hospitals, the community, the money side of owning a baseball team, and you do the business baseball side of owning a baseball team. So then it goes down to him where the manager is kind of next in line in between the general manager and obviously the assistant coaches from there. Well, word is that the general manager, he came out and said he had no idea about this, but he was suspended for a year by the MLB because you run the show, you should know about this, okay? Then it broke down to the manager who knew about this, did not condone or condemn the actions being implemented. So he knew, but he was like, don't get me into it. Do what you want. I don't care. I'm not involved. Cool. Then you go to the assistant coach. The assistant coach apparently was much more involved, much more pro using this information. So, and then you got the players who obviously were involved and knew what was happening. So the commissioner decides the manager and the GM are both suspended for a year. Without pay, can't talk to the team, can't do anything. It's the most suspensions for one team at this length in 100 years, since the 1917 or 18 Black Sox were accused of throwing the World Series for gambling purposes. So for those of you thinking these penalties aren't harsh enough, and we'll get to that in a little bit, I think I agree with you, and yet these are the harshest penalties we've seen in over 100 years. So it's really a tough spot to be in as an MLB commissioner. But the trickle effect that continues to come out is the owner of the Astros fired the coach and the GM like a half hour after this happened. Basically said, you're guilty, we'll see you, I don't want you here, I didn't know this was going on, we're going to start over. Okay, I get that. Obviously you cheat at work or something, you get caught, you're going to get canned, and that's what happens. But the assistant coach, who apparently was the most for using this, went on to coach the Boston Red Sox, be the manager of the Red Sox, who then in turn win the 2018 World Series after beating the Astros in the ALCS. So the team accused of this wins the 17 World Series. They get banged with the GM, the coach. The assistant who was there then goes over to this new team who hasn't been accused yet, but based on information, he was a heavy culprit. Gee, I wonder if the 2018 team, who just happened to win the World Series, was using this type of information. Okay, now we're doing a separate investigation into the Boston Red Sox moving into next year. It's fascinating to watch this continue to evolve, and you can look out for people, resigning maybe here in the near future to kind of save face before they get canned or however, you want to say it. But the conversation amongst the fans and some of the reasoning behind it, I don't know if I agree with it, but I'll give you guys the reasoning out there as to why they did not go after players or suspend players. Because, all right, so how do I put this for you? Basically, the commissioner's office wanted to remove the Band-Aid as quickly as possible. If they were to suspend players or accuse players and go into that aspect, the Players Association, the players themselves, they would have countersued. You don't have any evidence that I did this. I didn't know. I was just hitting. How was I supposed to know they were doing this stuff? I didn't even listen. And then it drags on into the 2020 season. You're into the All-Star break, and you're having some of your, top players, being accused here. They're going to be asked about it in the media. What's going on here? How's that going? This, that, and the third. So they didn't want any distractions, kind of went to a higher level and said, hey, we're just going to rip this out. We're going to take care of these guys. We're going to let the players go, do their thing, and just kind of continue forward. And for some individuals, they think that's not harsh enough. They think the players involved, if the players knew and did this and knew it was cheating, they should be punished just as the coaches. The 2017 title should be stripped, and they shouldn't be recognized for it. Well, here's the deal. All that money has been made. All that merchandise has been sold. All the tickets have been sold. It's really just a matter of the banner up in the building or the way the record book looks. But I was alive in 2017. I know the Houston Astros won the World Series. And I don't know. See, the last conversation I want to have here, wrapping up this first segment in the next couple of minutes, is it harsh enough to deter future individuals from doing this? And you look at it, GM fired, coach fired, loss of first and second round draft picks this year and next year, and the maximum $5 million fine based on the agreement with the unions. And my question that I've been asking people is, if you were the owner of the team and you knew all of this beforehand, would you do it again? And a lot of people are pausing knowing it's morally wrong, but basically saying, if I had the morals to do it once, hell yeah, I'd do it again. I mean, $5 million is a drop in the hat for billion-dollar owners. 2 draft picks, it's 4 guys. There's 40 rounds in baseball. Yeah, you may miss out on a top-end talent guy, but I'll tell you, only 10, 15% of people in the bigs, are top probably 5-round draft picks. A lot of journeymen, a lot of people who figure it out. Yes, draft picks, but not top 5, 10-round draft picks. I mean, hell, look at the Phillies, the way they are and the way their farm system's working. But it's going to be a fantastic story. It's going to continue to evolve here. Like I said, punishment probably coming for the Red Sox manager, so we'll stay tuned. We'll discuss that as the information becomes available to you here on 2Close2Call Sports. But that'll wrap up the first segment for now, talking national sports, NCAA title game. LSU hammers Clemson, moves to 15-0, national champion. Shout out Joe Brady, Joe Burrow, Coach O, all of the above. And then Houston Astros talk, and we'll continue on with baseball chatter as we move closer and closer here to opening day. Pitchers and catchers, they report in 28 days, baby. 4 weeks. Let's go. So we'll pause here for a brief moment from a word from one of our sponsors. And on the flip side, for the next segment, we're going to be talking birds, get into football here just a little bit locally. So stick with us for a brief moment. We'll talk to you guys soon out there.
Being prepared is a part of who you are, but it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Oh, in Baton Rouge. Oh, my God, I sound fantastic. Thank you, everyone out there, for the feedback. I'll see you guys in L.A. I got the golden ticket, Dylan. Let's go. Oh, man. Welcome back. It is January 14th, just half past the hour. I don't know why I love saying that. It sounds so dumb, but half past the hour. It's 1:32 here on Tuesday, January 14th. You're listening to Usula Media, Usula Radio. Kevin Mihalik here talking sports. This segment, we're going to talk Philadelphia Eagles. It's not going to be as long as the previous segments. By now, you guys have heard, seen what's going on there, but that's really the only question I have for the Eagles is, what the hell's going on out here? Who's that, Coach Lombardi? What the hell are we doing? It's just, it's been a whirlwind of a week here. I know I talked to you guys last Tuesday, post-game, postseason. Well, since that point, we've had a couple of press conferences, a couple of news bombs drop, and it's just getting too hard to frickin' pay attention here. So basically what happened is, postseason press conference, coach, GM, standard operating procedure. Questions from the media, Doug Peterson, coaching staff, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, wide receiver coach, all the positions that kind of struggled. How are we doing there? This is where it gets interesting because if one thing's known, it's that Doug Peterson can't lie. He can tell a lie, but he can't lie. I mean, if the guy played poker, he'd be one of the first guys out at the table because whenever he's trying to lie and whenever he goes cliches, you just see the blood boiling and the red face, and it's just, you could see right through. He was talking about Schwartz. Well, if he's back, I don't know. We'll see. Offensive coordinators. They're back. 100%. They did a fantastic job. They're going to be back this, that, and the third. So they asked straight up, is the wide receivers coach and the offensive coordinator going to be back? Doug, 100% in the moment, said yes, they will be back. We continued on. Everybody's like, okay, I get it, right? The public now did not want these individuals back, did not want Mike Groh back as offensive coordinator. So we'll jump around here. But as we move forward, it comes out now the next day after Doug Peterson is quoted saying they're 100% will be back. The Eagles have fired offensive coordinator Mike Groh and wide receivers coach. So what just happened there? Because less than 24 hours ago, the head coach said they would be back, and now they're not. Okay, let's put on our Sherlock Holmes cape here, get out our magnifying glass, try to figure out what the hell's going on. There's one explanation. Doug had not yet had all of his exit meetings. Now, the GM's sitting right next to him. So he clearly had spoken with him about, hey, what the hell are we saying in this press conference? It's no, I'm not breaking news here that these guys plan what to say, and they know the type of questions they're going to be getting. So that leaves one possibility is that the owner, Jeffrey Lurie, heard this press conference, basically was hoping Doug Peterson would figure this out on his own to move on from Mike Groh, didn't, and Jeffrey was like, yo, dude, I'm sorry, but those dudes are fired, man. Like, I don't want them here, and I own the team, so they're gone. Now it comes out a day later. Doug hops on 94.1, WIP, Angelo. Was it your call? Yes, it was 100% my call. What I should have said is I wasn't through the evaluation process, and I wasn't finishing determining. Well, here's the problem, Doug. You said that about Jim Schwartz. You didn't say that about Mike Groh. So what do you mean you should have said that? You knew you were going to say that, and you did. You didn't do it twice. How stupid are you? So literally you either sounded really dumb right now, which is, part of it, and God, I hope not, or you're just lying once again, and you're able to do it because it's only audio, and we can't actually see your face this time. So I think it's the latter. I think he wanted him back. I think Lurie said they're not coming back, and then they moved on from him. Couple of takeaways on that. Do we want our owner making business decisions on football coaches? Let me restate that. Do we want our owner making football decisions? He should be making business decisions, and he should not be making football decisions because he's not in the building for 20 out of the 24 hours a day. He's not going to be with this guy 6 out of the 7 days putting together a game plan. Doug Peterson has to deal with this guy. And what if Doug doesn't get along with him? And the next conversation everybody's having here, well, Doug, do you have 100% autonomy on picking who the next OC is? Is this 100% going to be your call? And obviously the answer for him is the textbook answer of yes, but we do collaborate. These people are going to meet the GM and the owner, blah, 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 duh. The short answer is no. That's a lie again, because look at the facts. If Doug had 100% autonomy to pick his guy, he told you he already did. He would have picked Mike Groh for a second year. So his choice was taken from him. So now basically you're telling me, hey, Doug, it's your call the second time, because we didn't like your call the first time, but it's totally your call this time too. What? How does that make any sense? You're clearly going to make this call or heavily influence the decision-making. No, Doug, this is 100% my call, even though I just told you I wanted these guys back. So, Doug, what's your call? I want him. No, you can't have him. Okay, still your call, Doug. That's not how it works. Like, I was literally having a conversation with my wife. It was kind of funny. She's like, yeah, let's go to the bakery and get a dessert. What do you want? And I was like, I don't really want anything. And she's like, well, we're going, and you're picking something. And I was like, okay. So we get there. She's like, what's your pick? I was like, none of it. I don't want to be here. It's basically the same instance. It was just funny in the moment because it was a parallel. We ended up getting something. It was for my birthday. Thank you, Bridget, if you're listening out there. I appreciate it. But it was just a very similar cross where I was like, that's exactly what happened. Hey, do you want anything? No. Well, we're going anyway. Okay, we're here. What do you want? I already told you. I don't want anything. Well, you got to pick somebody, and it's your decision. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. It's just, it all seems foolish. And we give Jerry Jones a ton of crap when he does it in Dallas, but it's okay when Jeffrey Lurie does it here because the decision he made was one that the fans wanted to be made. So, little hypocrisy coming from me, you, and everybody else out there on the fansmanship of the Eagles, basically being like, since it's what we wanted, it's cool. But we don't want you doing this unless it's what we want. Because Doug wasn't going to do what we want, so we're glad you did. But that's not how it works, man. So just interesting dynamic there. Obviously, they have an opening now. Whose decision? TBD. I think it's all three of theirs, mainly Jeffrey Lurie. There's been talk about Joe Brady. There's been talk about John DeFilippo, who recently became available. If he's going to be welcome back, should they bring him back? He's failed twice now as an OC. Would he want to be a quarterback's coach again? Take a demotion, come home? Who knows? A lot of questions there. But another takeaway from the press conference, more on the Howie Roseman side and the general management roster construction side of things, was Howie said we obviously need to get younger as a football team. We're old, and we see our window, quote-unquote, 2 to 3 year window since winning the Super Bowl as coming to an end. And I was so happy he said that, because basically he was saying, hey, all of these guys we've relied on and continue to kind of run back out there because it happened once, it's officially time to move on from. We can't continue to pull a Philadelphia Phillies from 2009 to 2012 saying, yeah, Howard, Utley, Rollins will be great. They were good. They're starting to lose it, guys. And the problem with this is the biggest and hardest decisions this offseason are going to go completely against the grain if he makes a certain call as to getting younger. And what I mean by that is your biggest decisions are going to be Malcolm Jenkins, who made it clear he's not coming back on his current deal with 1 year left and I think $7.5–8 million, and everybody else has been paid. So he's going to look for 10, 12, 14, somewhere in that range, depending on guarantees, length of deal, blah, 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 getting into all that stuff. The next one is Jason Peters, left tackle. You drafted Andre Dillard to be his replacement. Jason came out after the game, said, I'm still playing at a high level and I want to keep playing football. And he has. If you look at Pro Football Focus, he was graded out excellent. Yes, there's the standard false start, because he has to cheat a little bit now, but that's another decision. Do you bring him back? And then you have the wide receiver crew of Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. Both of their contracts screw you from a team perspective. You extended Jeffrey, and Howie made this abundantly clear once again. Jeffrey took a pay cut in order to get a guarantee. So we're paying him less money, but now next year's guaranteed. So you are not cutting Alshon Jeffrey. One, because he's got an injury. He's got the foot injury, so he's got to be 100% healthy and pass a physical before you can trade him. Second, you can't cut him because it would cost you an additional $10 million. You would literally save $10 million by just having him on the roster, standing on the sidelines, than you would by cutting them based on the language in his contract. And, third, you're going to have trouble trading him because, again, he has to pass a physical. He's owed money, but you would save, or no, it would only cost you about $1 million. So best case scenario for the Birds is to trade Alshon Jeffrey, but you can't do it during the offseason because he won't pass a physical and he's going to be injured. So what does that mean? It means you're looking at the trade deadline next year. And at that point, because he's probably going to start the season on the PUP, physically unable to perform list, which is about a 6-week injury. And then at that point, you're right up against the deadline. Nobody's going to take a guy coming off a year injury who hasn't played football and is owed a butt ton of money. So Alshon Jeffrey's coming back, even though that's a terrible, terrible thing to hear. Deshaun Jackson will be back. Once again, he's the same way. You lose $8 million if you cut him. You save like $500,000 if you trade him, or you lose $500,000. Either way, he'll be traded. But he's one of the only guys in the category where you need attention. You need speed. And he's one of your only speed receivers on the roster who's a professional. So basically, if I'm looking at it, if you pay Malcolm Jenkins, if you bring Alshon back, you bring Deshaun Jackson back, may or may not move on Peters. Say you move on from Peters. Either way, that's 3 guys in key positions where you just said, we need to get younger. We need to get more explosive. And you're going to have to pay older talent to hang around. Like, those are the guys he's talking about with the Super Bowl window. The Jenkins, the Peters, the Jeffrey, Darby, McLeod, Mills, all of the above. All of these guys are free agents and getting older. And the problem is, the pipeline for the Philadelphia Eagles is not that full. And this was a conversation I had on the podcast probably about 6 months ago. It was before the season, and I basically was a pessimist, and I had one of those moments, one of those 20-minute windows where I was like, this whole thing is going down. Like they're not going to maintain this whatsoever, because you look at positioning, you look at talent, you look at money distribution. Their best case scenario is Seattle Seahawks Russell Wilson style. You pay Wentz $35 million a year, he balls out every year. You're 10-6, 9-7, 11-5, just because he's that good. I mean, when you look at it, Jason Kelce up front, he's maybe got 1-2 more years tops before retirement. Then you move Samalo over, who's down. But then you need a guard. Well, you got Dillard at left tackle. If he's a left tackle and he can play, I'll say he will, so we'll be positive there. But on the right side, you got a guys coming up in age a little bit. Yes, they're both excellent, probably the top people at their position, right guard and right tackle, and certainly the best combo in Brandon Brooks and Lane Johnson, but decisions to be made. Then you go to the defensive side of the football, and things get a little murky. You got Timmy Jernigan you got to make a question on. Malik Jackson's over 30 coming off an injury. Fletcher Cox, still a beast, not getting any younger. Brandon Graham over 30 you just paid. Vinny Curry over 30, he's a free agent. Josh Sweat, young kid, okay. Derek Barnett, so-so. Nigel Bradham, an old cat you're probably going to cut and move on from. You may or may not move on from Cremu Gruge Hill because he lied to you about a concussion and whatnot, and just not in good graces. You may have a few rookie linebackers. D-backs, Jenkins, McLeod, talked about both of them, getting old and expensive. Mills, Darby, Douglas, Jones, bum. It's just, there's a lot that needs to happen here, folks. And I know in Philadelphia, we like to have an optimistic, hey, we're going to be good no matter what, again, going into this year. And don't give me that through the screen here. I hear you guys yelling at the radio, okay? You guys had 13-3, 12-4 written all over this year. Don't give me you had 5-7 or 9-7. I remember sitting on the beach Labor Day going, Detroit, win. Atlanta, win. This one, win. We're easy. 12-4, and we're sitting people at the end because we're the 1 seed. So I'm just saying, take a realistic pill real quick. Let it hit you briefly. A ton of change happened in this offseason. They're going to need to hit on these draft picks. They need speed at wide receiver early in the draft. They need speed at cornerback early in the draft. They need linemen later, linebackers later, both offensive and defense. There's a lot of needs here for the Birds. A lot of opportunity. A lot of young talent. Ertz is fine. Goddard's fine. Miles Sanders is fantastic. You do have Cox. So there are building blocks and pieces here. So I don't foresee 3-13, 4-12. Don't get me wrong. But I certainly could see that middling anywhere from 6-10 to 10-6 based on how 6 plays go in 6 games. So kind of like this year. 1 play in Detroit, you win the game. 1 play in Atlanta, you win the game. 1 play here, you lose the game. 1 play here, you lose the game. It's going to be a lot of toss-ups for the future here if they don't hit on all of these picks this offseason. So big offseason for Doug. Let's get that offensive coordinator in here. Let's get some fresh blood. Quickly, don't give me Deuce Staley. I know we want Deuce. I want some fresh blood, some fresh eyes. Or if you do go Deuce, you got to give me somebody new as a passing game coordinator, a la Joe Brady's title, this, that, and the third. But you got to give me some fresh blood, some fresh energy, because if we're running this back again, man, we've seen this song and dance here for the second and third time. But That's a good place to stop. Good conversation about the Eagles there for the second segment. We'll pause here for a brief word from one of our sponsors. Once again, this is Too Close to Call Sports, brought to you by Kevin Mihalik, USLA Media, USLA Radio. Coming up on quarter of here, 1:45. We're going to talk Sixers and Flyers here, coming out of the break up until 2. Appreciate everybody listening out there, and we'll catch you guys in just a moment.
$150 over $90.
180 over 111.
160 over 110. I had a stroke.
This is what high blood pressure looks like. You might not feel its symptoms, but the results from a stroke are far from invisible or silent. If you've come off your treatment plan, get back on it, or talk with your doctor to create an exercise, diet, and medication plan that works for you. Go to loweryourhbp.org.
If I would have followed a treatment plan, I would not be in this situation.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, and she convinced me to continue my education. No one receives a diploma alone. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Call in Baton Rouge. Oh, man, that's a jam out there. I'm going to be honest with you. Every time this plays, it just takes me back to, like, college at, like, 2 in the morning, right when the party's winding down. And it's like, let's hit him. It was this, and we always used to end with, last chance. It's the last chance for love. And I was like, oh, perfect. That meant get the hell out of the house, and if you're going to hook up, it's your last chance. So, oh man, 2010, what the world was like. Oh, that was a decade ago. Man, a lot's happened in a decade. Oh my goodness. But we're back here at USLA Media, USLA Radio. I'm your host, Kevin Mihalik, talking sports here. We talked NCAA football, Houston Astros, Philadelphia Eagles. And for the last couple minutes here, last 10 minutes or so, it's finally time to discuss the Philadelphia 76ers. I know we've been putting this off here a little bit. Things have been crazy, NFL playoffs, college football playoffs. But in the background here, we've had a basketball team really struggling. I mean, they're now 25-16 and currently the 6th seed in the East. Now, when you break this down, it's not the most absurd thing in the world, right? So they're officially at the halfway mark. 41 games, they play 82. So double it up. You're 50-32. Last year, they won 51 games. The year before, 52, or vice versa, 51 and then 52, and then it'd be 50. So 3 straight years winning 50 games. I mean, where's our expectations as fans? Yeah, obviously, last year, the additions we made, again, Philadelphia, we think they're all going to hit. And, we're certainly going to be the 1 seed here. But it basically comes down to 4-6 in their last 10 games. They have a Joel Embiid injury. They had a Josh Richardson injury. A few other guys have missed time so far this year. The entire core hasn't really ever found that groove yet. And Embiid dislocated his finger. I know everybody saw that against Boston, I believe it was. That picture was gross. God, man, I'm a football guy. That's going the wrong way, man. Get that out of here. But not just a dislocation, ended up tearing a ligament in his hand, had surgery in New York based on some feedback from doctors. I myself am not a doctor, but I've read from doctors. It's a 6-week injury and then a couple of weeks for rehab. So looking at 6 to 8. In my opinion, probably closer to 6 just because Joel, and then again, it's a Sixer, so it's probably going to be freaking 10, 12 weeks at that point. But we're looking at a month and a half here. So you're basically looking at March, give or take, middle of January. Say March, April. That's flirting with playoff time. That means he's going to be coming back about a month, couple of weeks left in the regular season. So this stretch here is really going to be key without Joel Embiid. And that just it raises the importance of everybody else on the roster. And a few guys I wanted to call out here. One, mainly Ben Simmons. Two things, Ben. One, shoot the damn ball. Dude, we talked about this. We've watched it. We've seen you make a couple. Brett Brown came out and said shoot one a game. You basically are just saying, screw you, coach. I ain't doing it. That's the only reason I can think of you not shooting it. First possession of the game, come down, shoot the ball. You're done. That's it. That's all you got to do. Make him happy. But you're not doing that. Also, recently here, he's had a hell of a game in the first half, and then he just disappears after halftime. So teams basically adjust to him and his style of basketball and have still learned how to shut him down. It's the same stuff with the playoffs. They sag off of him. They play in the paint. Make him shoot the rock, gets layups, and he has like 20 in the first half, and then when things tighten up, he's nowhere to be seen in the second half. It's a couple of games in a row where he's had 4 points after halftime. Yes, 24, 26 total, but in crunch time, just completely unavailable for the team and the squad. So just I don't understand what exactly is going on with Ben Simmons. Vice versa, Josh Richardson. Dude, take over, bro. Like, we brought you in here from Jimmy Butler. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not in here to be the fourth guy. You're in here to be 1D, if that makes sense, and 1C now that JoJo's out. I mean, the fact of the matter is he hasn't been here. He's still kind of feeling his way. He doesn't want to be a ball hog, take from other guys. Oh, I'm trying to work into the crowd, this, that, and the third. Well, the truth of the matter is you're one of the only dudes who can score the rock right now, man. You really are. You, Tobias Harris, like I said, Ben Simmons is a one-trick pony. Al Horford's a good ball player, but he's not a scorer. He's not giving you 30. He can pop out, shoot a three, give you some quality defense. He's going to be in the right spot at the right time, but he ain't putting up 30. Simmons ain't putting up 30. Joel Embiid's out, and that leaves Josh Richardson and Tobias Harris. And Harris has been, the model of consistency, but he's a 20-point guy, 22, 24. He has yet to put up that 40, 45 game that I keep waiting for where he gets really hot, but he's steady as she goes, man. And that's where Josh Richardson has that ability, I think, to put up 30 in one of these games and shoot the rock from downtown, because three-point shooting continues to be something this team has lacked, and they don't have this year. And I thought there was a hell of a tweet out there. I forget who it was. I think it was just a casual fan, but basically it said the Sixers' problems are turnovers and three-point shooting. I would love to say I'm surprised, except for that's been their problem for 3 years now. They just haven't addressed any of the issues and haven't given them the shooters, and that's where Brett Brown, who's come under fire here recently, whether or not he should maintain his position or if this team needs a wake-up call and a change in the coaching staff. And that's where it's troubling, because based on the talent and everything, they don't have the three-point shooters. So the fact that they're not shooting well from beyond the arc, what are you putting that on Brett Brown? It's not his fault they can't shoot. They don't have shooters. You didn't give them the ingredients to put together that recipe. But on the flip side, them having all of these turnovers and continuing to have trouble with turnovers is something that can be coached out of you as a basketball player and as a basketball team. That is something that needs to be worked on over the course of 1 year, let alone 3 years. And I think that's where the frustration continues to mount, is late in games, this team struggles with not turning the ball over. They struggle with getting good looks, whether it's Embiid, Simmons, all of the above. They just don't seem to be able to put things together when they need to. And then vice versa, things like Simmons, he's telling him to shoot, he's not shooting. So is he not listening to the coach? Does he not respect the coach? Has he lost the locker room? All of these conversations are beginning to be had here, and it's probably still just a bit too early on the fire Brett Brown train. I'm okay with you guys starting to board the train, but I think we're still on groups 1 and 2. You know what I'm saying? We haven't gotten yet to groups C, D, and E, or groups 3, 4, and 5, that type of stuff, and we're certainly not on the runway ready for takeoff. But we have begun boarding the fire Brett Brown train, and they're filling up the caboose with gas. So it's getting heavier and hotter when it comes to Brett Brown, and if he has another 4 and 6 stretch over the next 2-3 weeks, 10 games, I certainly don't think he'll make it out of that. So they do have to turn it around here sooner rather than later. But a few trade targets that are being floated out there for the Sixers. You got Marcus Morris, the Morris twins, Markieff and Marcus, I believe, but they're Philly kids, so it certainly makes sense bringing him back to Philly. They play a little bit of that Mike Scott role, a little bit of an agitator, big body, wing guy, can shoot a little bit, do some dirty work, and really brings an attitude and a nastiness that you need come playoff time, come end of the year when defense totally ramps up and intensity continues to get going. So Another one is a friendly name, Robert Covington, Rocco 3. Could be back in the building. We traded him to Minnesota for Jimmy Butler with Dario Saric and a few picks, this, that, and the third. But basically, he was a guy we didn't want to give up, but you weren't not going to make the trade based on Robert Covington. So the interest in Robert Covington certainly makes sense. They didn't want to move him in the first place, so there's probably always been interest in a reunion there. It's just a matter of making it work monetarily because I believe he's still on the contract he signed with the Sixers, which was very cost effective. Now the guarantees for him were an automatic, and then the Sixers were saving a little bit of money. So it was a win-win at the time, and a reunion there would be excellent because he's a 3-and-D guy, and you need shooting, you need defense come playoff time, that's for sure. So the other one, let's see, Bertans out of Washington. What the hell is his name? Darius Bertans. I didn't know who the hell the guy was until about a month ago. I started seeing his name pop up in some rumors, figured I'd do a little bit of research, but basically, as you've seen here, there's a little bit of a pattern going on, but he's a shooter. Big lefty shooter, wing guy with the Washington Wizards. They're the Wizards, right? The Bullets, Wizards, whatever the hell they are. They keep changing. But Washington's not very good, so that's why they would move on from him. It would probably cost you some younger talent, like a Zaire Smith in the G League, somebody else. They're not going to move on from Matisse Thybulle, this year's first-round pick, but there could be years past or future picks being moved to add a shooter from Washington, because Washington's not making the playoffs. They're not very good, so they can move on from assets to kind of recruit, because they do have John Wall and Bradley Beal on big-time contracts, and those are their two kind of pillars that they're standing on moving forward. But the last name I saw was Malik Beasley. So not a ton of names out there. There really aren't those big names, kind of like last year. Are we getting Butler? Is it Harris? Do we really need to improve? There's not a magician that's going to come in and send 2 or 3 of them out, bring 2 or 3 of them in, continue to rotate. This is pretty much what they're going with here for the rest of the year on the hardwood. And we saw early on it was successful, and hell, even to this point here, 18-2 at home, 7-14 on the road. That's a 7. I mean, move 4 of them. You go 11-10, and you're 29-12. It really is. 16 losses, 14 on the road. Man, so you play 41 road games. They're through, say, 20, so double it, 7, 14, and 28. That is so bad. I don't understand that, specifically because in basketball, there's not even like a shift change. Like the Flyers are really struggling on the road, but it's because the home team gets to put the players on the ice second. So there's a face-off. Hey, away team, who you sending out there? Giroux. Okay, home team, we counter with these individuals. Are you putting your 4th line out? We'll put our 1st line out, so we have that matchup. That's not basketball. Basketball is fluid no matter where you are. Obviously, it's your building, your fans, XYZ, but there's no actually fundamental difference between being on the home team and the road team there. So I just have trouble figuring out what's going on and why they have trouble getting going outside of the Wells Fargo Center, because obviously 18-2, that's one of the better home records in all of the NBA. So it's a storyline to follow. Like we said, the Brett Brown train starting to get filled with gas, starting to get boarded up here. So we'll manage that and continue to follow as we go here. Obviously, with the Eagles moving on and things slowing down, we'll continue with some off-season chatter. Go through some positional groups, what we see happening moving forward in more detail, who will be back, what type of contract they'll be on, this, that, and the third. But we're certainly going to be diving into the Sixers here a little bit more as we move into January, February, March, and then the Flyers as well. I know we've ignored them here the past couple of weeks. We're going to talk about those guys a little bit more on Saturday's broadcast, and that is one thing I wanted to let you guys know. Saturday, we're on from 2 to 3 here at Usula Media, and then Sunday still from 8 to 9 a.m. I know I talked to you guys yesterday in the new time slot, Monday from 4 to 5, as things continue to evolve, move, switch around. I got no problem going on at different times for you guys. We'll try to standardize, but if we can, I'll continue to keep you updated on all of the social media, on when I'm coming on, what we're talking about, what we're discussing. So if you have a take, question, comment, concern, you can put it there and be heard on the radio. So if you're saying, well, how do I do that, Kev? You just go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of the above. Start with KMiho20, KMIHO20. That's my personal page. Then go to 2Close2Call Sports, the number 2 both times. Then follow up with Usula Media and Usula Radio, because all 3 pages will give you guys different things. We don't just post the same thing on all the above. Usula will obviously have everything Usula is doing, not just sports, politics, music, food, all of the above. Too Close to Call Sports will be podcast related. We'll have every takes on what's going on in the sports world, a bunch of funny videos, posts, and then me personally, I'll let you guys know where I'm at on the radio, where you can hear me, and what we're talking about there as well. But that does it for another edition here of Too Close to Call Sports, January 14th. It's just about 2 o'clock here. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed the first couple of days of the week thus far. Nothing crazy's happened out there. We're making it through another workday here as we party on for 2020. But I appreciate you guys listening as always. If you listen to every show, thank you so much. If this is your first time, check out the podcast, check out the radio, come back this weekend. If you enjoyed, we'll continue to bring you guys some laughter and some entertainment. But for now, that's going to wrap it up. I'm your host, Kevin Mihalik, Too Close to Call Sports. Appreciate everybody listening out there, and we'll talk to you guys this weekend. Peace.